You know that feeling when you're watching a family touring your museum together and someone is super engaged and someone else is completely checked out? Maybe the adult is reading every single line of text and the teenager is staring blankly at the floor, or the toddler is trying to climb the stanchion. You know that feeling? If you have been following me for any length of time, you have probably heard me tell the story of the time that my family visited a museum in New York, and my, at the time, 8-year-old was definitely not having it. He was so disengaged until we came upon a specific exhibit. But that's a story for another time. The point here is that for most of that visit, he was just tagging along beside me, not engaged, not interested, and not learning. Maybe you've seen something similar happen at your institution. It's frustrating, right? But more than that, it speaks to this deep desire that we all have for true collaborative learning where the entire group is activated. Because we all know that deep down, if someone just isn't engaged in the visit, they aren't really a visitor at all. They're just tagging along, right? Well, today we're going to look at how to change that. If you have ever led a field trip on a tough subject, waited on a school bus that was 20 minutes late, or bounced straight from a toddler storytime program into an impromptu meeting with a board member, you're in the right place. I'm Rachel, a museum education researcher, consultant, and creative partner for small but mighty education teams who feel a little stretched thin, but know this job is worth it. This podcast is where museum education scholarship meets real-world realities, helping you reclaim your creativity, energy, and maybe even your lunch break. Welcome to the Modern Museum Education Podcast. Hi, friends, and welcome back to the show. If we haven't met yet, I'm Rachel, the founder of Modern Museum Education. I'm a creative consultant for educators who work in small and mid-sized museums, helping you to create sustainable, strategic, and pedagogically sound programs for children and families that won't have you burning the candle at both ends. Today, we are looking at specific design principles that we can employ to create opportunities for intergenerational collaboration in our museum programs. Because family friendly is more than just adding a coloring sheet to a side table in your main exhibit space. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and I'm going to make a bold claim. It is also more than just having a family gallery or a kid space. Although for the museums that do have those resources, they are lovely for families, don't give them up. But for many museums, especially small museums, the resources and in many cases, the literal space doesn't exist for those super cool family galleries. So if that's you, you might be feeling a little limited in how family friendly you can be. But I have great news. Today, we're going to talk about how we can go beyond family friendly, which, incidentally, is the title of my chapter in an upcoming book on museum education. And when I get more information about publication, I will be sure to let you know. What I am talking about here is implementing a program design shift towards collaborative family learning experiences, which is where the museum enables parents or any caregivers to excel at their role as facilitators, which is a concept that we talked about in episode 21. So definitely go back and give that a listen if you missed it. So a little over 20 years ago, the USS Constitution Museum embarked along with a research partner on a research journey to better understand family visitors. And they developed 9 helpful principles that encourage intergenerational collaborative learning. Now, initially, these principles were presented as physical design benchmarks, but I see them as applying to program design as well. The 9 principles are: number 1, multi-user, meaning that design choices should intentionally facilitate physical collaboration and cognitive collaboration among more than one user. Number 2, multi-sided. Exhibits and activity spaces need to have enough space for more than one person to gather around them. Number 3, multimodal. This means there's an opportunity for everyone to participate, regardless of their preferences, prior knowledge, or physical or cognitive abilities. Number 4, encourage conversation. The social motivation of family groups should not be underestimated. Remember, we talked about this a little bit in episode 21. Moments for genuine connection should be intentionally crafted through opportunities for inquiry and dialogue. So encourage conversation amongst your families. Number 5, multi-outcome. In this case, we want to give family groups agency and choice in choosing what they do and what outcome they get from it. Number 6, authentic and distinctive. This is where you lean into what makes your museum unique. What can families do on your site that they can't do anywhere else? Number 7, relevance. Design choices should help all visitors of all ages connect your content to their everyday lives and to the rest of the world. Number 8, accessible. This one's pretty obvious. Everything needs to be welcoming and comfortable for everyone, no matter how old they are. Number 9, fun and play. Family groups are social groups, and fun is frequently cited as a driver of family museum visits. Now, fun and museums have an interesting tension between them, and we're going to get into that in a future episode. So hold on to your questions about fun and play in museums. But taken together, these 9 principles highlight that family learning should provide opportunities for individual exploration and discovery and learning nested within shared communal experiences. Now, there is a lot to unpack in those 9 principles, but the gist is that family learning in museums should provide opportunities for personal exploration and shared experiences simultaneously. Admittedly, this is a high bar, but it is attainable. We're going to actually do a deep dive into several of these principles, like I mentioned, play, also dialogue and accessibility in future episodes. But today, I want to focus on the 2 principles that I feel are the easiest to implement if you are brand new to museum education, or if you are wanting to update a program or a space on a tight and scrappy museum budget. These 2 principles are multi-sited and multi-user. Oh, and a quick side note. If you want more details about how you can implement these strategies specifically in your institution, you can join us in the Engagement Lab, where we dive into all of those kinds of things. You can find out more about that resource at modernmuseumeducation.com/lab or at the link in the show notes. Okay, let's get started with multi-sited. This is generally a practical concern. We have to ask ourselves, is there literally enough room, literally enough physical space around this activity or around this exhibit for more than one person to see and interact with it at the same time? This is easy enough to audit through observation. How many people are moving through this exhibit? Do they take turns? Or if they're not taking turns, how can you facilitate taking turns? Do they view it as a one-person only experience and so they're just moving on? Is there plenty of room for the group to not only view, but also, this is important, to reflect on an activity or an experience together? Essentially, like I said, this is a question of space. Are you providing enough space for a small group to collaborate in learning? It can be, I know from experience, incredibly frustrating when you're dealing with an existing historic or permanent space and there's not much you can do about the physical layout. If that is you, don't panic. Consider how you can add multi-sided activities elsewhere in your institution, elsewhere in the gallery, even outside, to extend engagement opportunities beyond the physical limits of a given space. For example, you can add a multi-user activity in a completely different building or out on your grounds. And these can connect back to exhibits or topics presented in more compact, smaller spaces elsewhere. If you do that, though, I would advise you to consider adding a text label that tells families where they can find this extra learning opportunity. Or if it's a guided tour situation, maybe it's a historic house that you work in, make sure that your guides are telling families where they can find this additional multi-sided activity, because of course, it won't work if no one uses it. So make sure your visitors know about all the opportunities that you are providing them. Okay, let's talk about our second principle, multi-user. And let me be clear, this is not just another way to say multi-sided. While multi-sided is about the physical space for multiple people, The multi-user principle highlights the need to give multiple levels of information to different people at the exact same time. And if it sounds like I am saying that you should say different things to different people at the same time, well, that's exactly what I'm saying. And now you might be asking, Rachel, how do we do that? The answer is that we do this by layering content. Now, before I jump exactly into what I mean by layering content, I want to make sure that you know there is more support for you than just this short podcast episode. If you are looking for more support in creating materials or training your staff on these principles, be sure to check out modernmuseumeducation.com/services to see all of the ways I can support you in budget-friendly, sustainable ways. Okay, so what I mean by layered content is this. Imagine a stack of pancakes where each pancake is the same, but the stack can be shared between multiple people. I can pass out a pancake to everyone, and everyone gets the same experience, whether they like pancakes or not. Now, imagine a layer cake where each layer is a different flavor or texture. And when it is shared, everyone gets an opportunity to have something that they want or need. So this is actually a lot more complicated at first, but once you get the general idea, you start seeing a million and one ways to implement it in your programs. Again, if you want to ask me any specific questions, join me in the engagement lab where we are talking all about these kinds of practical, real life meets research questions. In the interest of time, I am going to try to keep this brief, and I know that we are just scratching the surface here, but one easy way to layer content is to employ text connections. If you've ever taught elementary school or you've ever had an elementary school kid in your home, you might be familiar with the concept of text connections. Text connections are used to teach kids the all important reading skill of making relevant connections between what is on the page and what is happening in real life, even when they're reading fiction. There are three kinds of text connections. Text to self, which is a connection between the text and your personal life and experience. Text to text, which is a connection between the text and other things you have read. And lastly, text to world, which is a connection between what you're reading and anything in the wider world. The thing is, if as a museum professional you have ever done a reading the object activity, then you know that we can read objects like we read words. We examine them and we look for connections. You can literally replace the word text with the word object, and you have a whole new way to engage your audiences. Object to self connections, object to object connections, and object to world connections. Give prompts that encourage your visitors to connect what they are seeing with themselves, with other objects in the museum, and anything that's happening in the wider world. This is honestly the easiest way to create layered content. Offer opportunities for everyone to make text connections. Your goal is to encourage conversations among the group by tapping into universal experiences using the uniqueness of your collections and stories. You can do this simply by asking open-ended questions that tap into universal life experiences and invite reflection. Here are some examples to get you started. What object reminds you of home? What object makes you think of change? What object makes you think of a celebration? What object makes you think of a moment you'd want to go back to? What object makes you think of something you've lost or found? What object makes you think of the future? What object makes you think of a story to tell? What object makes you think of an adventure? What object makes you think of a character? What object makes you think of a superpower? What object makes you think of a place you'd like to visit? What object makes you think of someone in your family? What object makes you think of something from before you were born? What object makes you think of a tradition? What object makes you think of how things used to be and how different it is to now? Now, I know there is a lot here, but I invite you to start small. What is one way that you can layer in content by making text connections on guided tours or in your activity prompts? If you are looking for additional support in addressing the gaps in your family programs, I have got layers of support for you. See what I did there? If your main problem right now is that you need tangible, hands-on support, my Museum Ready materials are designed to help you close that gap. They bridge the distance between the programs that you have and the programs that you want in a scalable, no grant required kind of way. Or if you're looking to build capacity within your team, check out my Frontline Focus workshops, which are designed to help you train your staff to facilitate these kinds of experiences. You can find out more about both of those at museumeducation.com/services or by clicking the link in the show notes. So to recap, if you want to design programs that work for both kids and adults simultaneously, start small. Look at your spaces through the lens of being multi-sited and multi-user. You can also check out support services and consider joining me in the Engagement Lab for more details on how to apply these principles in your everyday museum life. In the meantime, keep the research close and your craft glue closer. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for being here today. If this episode helped you, please subscribe, forward to a friend, leave a review, send me an email. It's all great ways to help other museum educators find the show and help me know how best to serve you. As always, you can find the show notes, the resources, and all the ways to work with me at modernmuseumeducation.com. I'll see you back here next time, and remember, your work isn't childish just because you work with children.